welcome to the Fierce Awakened Woman 2023 Creativity Jam, where we are putting some fun in our fears, some fierce in our fun, and just having a good time, pulling off life's highway for a little while and turning down the volume of the noise of the world and connecting to our own flavor of intuition with a little bit of courage, confidence, and creative chutzpah. I'm Jen Balco, founder of Always on My Way, and your guide and MC through our 5-day event. So here we are, day one, and I am with Sierra Melker. I just want to say your name a little bit differently, but Sierra's here. And before I ask her to unmic, I'm going to read her bio, and then we're going to just start a little bit of a conversation. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be so much fun. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about Sierra. Sierra, by the way, just out of the bio, she's a returning Fierce Awakened Woman speaker. She was one of our debut speakers in 2021. And actually, it was during that event that she said, I think I'm starting a publishing company. And then all this other stuff kind of happened. And as a result, there are books like really being published. So, on that note, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Sierra. Best-selling author, international speaker, and educator, Sierra Melker is founder of the Red Thread Publishing Company. She leads an all-female publishing company with a mission to support 10,000 women to become successful published authors and thought leaders, offering world-class coaching and courses that focus on community collaboration and uniquely feminine approach at every stage of the author process. Sierra, oh, that was a period. Every stage of the author process. Sierra has a master's degree in education, has spoken and taught around the world, and he's originally from the US, but now lives in Medellin, Colombia, with her younger daughter. And she is reporting live poolside. Sierra, come on in and let's everybody welcome Sierra
Hi, Jen.
to the room.
Hello, everybody. Fierce awakened women, or people who are even, rubbing the sleep out of their eyes, metaphorically or literally, all are welcome. I am poolside because I think we should all be poolside. I have my young one right here, and this is. So as Jen said, I run a publishing company, and it's so interesting how we are on a process of continually unfurling, self-discovery, etc., because what is now very real was once upon a time just like a flickering of an idea of a dream. And I think what I really want to focus on today is that in-between space. Because I think we compress the have a dream, should have it done already space. And this is the incubating stage. This is the developmental stage. This is a lot happens in this space that does not, I don't think gets enough attention in our culture. And as a result, we beat ourselves up about not having closed that gap so quickly. I had the idea, I can't believe I'm not done already. That sort of approach. Okay. So what I'd love to share today is for anyone who has ever dreamt of writing, of being a writer, of publishing, of sharing your story, raise your hand if you've ever said, I wish I were a writer. I wish I wrote a book. I wish I could. I wish I did. This is a really common calling. It's a common desire. And yet, so few people close the gap between the dream and the execution. I also am really curious about this word execution because it also means to be killed. So like, what is, we need a different word. Completion, right? Such a weird word. I'm dyslexic, and so words like get hung up in my head, and that's We're not going to execute anybody or anything. Having done this, and Jen generously showed 2 of the books that we've published in the last 3 years since this dream sprouted roots. We've published now 43 books. I don't have them all behind me because I have a pool behind me. We've worked with over 178 women to go through this process, to write their story, to find their voice, to heal their own process even further than they believed possible, right? You have to be healed to really give yourself permission to write. Writing takes that healing. Joanna's here. She was part of this process. It's like, I'm healed. Oh, when I write, I am like healed to the 10th dimension I didn't know was a thing. Maybe you're drawn to share your story so that it can help others. Maybe you know that writing your story and becoming published is the next level of your own transformation and development. But so many people who have the calling and have the dream get stuck. It's really easy to get stuck because we have this gap. Raise your hand if you think to do a big thing, to do a new thing like writing or publishing, I just have to work harder. Raise your hand if that story makes sense. It's new to me. I'm going to have to work really hard to get from here to there. Okay. Before we hit record, Jen talked about calling in our spirits, our power, and I've always joked, but I do now think it might be true that my spirit animal, my power animal is the sloth. And so I want you to be thinking and to undo some of the stories you hold unquestionable as true about the how we get from a dream to a realization. I like realization. That's much better than execution. So I want to talk and share with you today a methodology, a process that I actually learned, it was handed to me from a couple of different mentors, and it takes inspiration from the phases of the moon. And it's a methodology that works with writing, but it works with all projects and all endeavors. And maybe after you've heard it or practiced it, you'll see how it can be applied to buying a new house or running a business or making dinner, anything. Part of the problem with our conception of writing is the words we use to describe it. How do you write a book? Well, you sit down and you write. That, right? There are 4 parts to the writing process, and these 4 parts echo the phases of the moon. Only one of them is writing. Okay. How many people here want to know the other 3 things that are involved that will actually make what we call writing process happen with a little bit more ease, will help you navigate a lot of the places that people get stuck. And in turn, your writing will still be challenging. You will still go through dark night of the soul, all the things, but you will have a container in which to go through them with. So writing is only, here's the famous quote, and I heard it first through Maya Angelou, even if she wasn't the first, but 80% of writing is not writing. So let's figure out what all the rest of it is, okay? I've named it already, and you have it already, okay? That inspiration, the desire, the spark of the dream, of the idea, of the someday I wish I could. Not everybody has that. I don't understand those people, but there are lots of them who just have no desire to become writers. It's okay. Love them anyway. But if you do not have this seed, if you do not have the I want to, it's logical. And of course, please don't try to become a writer if you have no desire to do so. So I want you to recognize and acknowledge that the inspiration is the fundamental prerequisite ingredient in this process. And I don't want you to overlook it. In fact, I want to challenge you to deconstruct it. How did this inspiration find you? What else in your life can you do that invites, nurtures, and cultivates this inspiration? Hint, I'm practicing it right now in 2 different ways. One, green space, poolside, daughter time, talking with people who are also interested in the same kinds of things. That's some of my recipe for inspiration. Rest, disconnecting from the internet. Okay. There's so many ways to cultivate this resting, dreaming, inspiration, invitation space. If you're following along and you want to know what moon phase is this is the new moon. This is when we can quiet. This is when we can reflect and be internal. How much are you hearing splashing in the background? A lot or a little? Nothing? I love this mic. Okay. So the new moon, we start with the dreaming, the inspiration. It is the hint of a shadow of a possibility, and it looks like nothing. And in fact, it doesn't exist in the tangible realm yet. Do not overlook it yet. It is all you need. Okay. The next phase, as you would look into the sky, the new moon turns into just a crescent, a hint of something. And day by day, almost unnoticeably, it grows. And it begins to shine, and it begins to be visible and obvious to everybody. We also talk about a book like a baby. And so there's this gestation process between dream and realization. The next part of the process is then planning. And I think of each of these phases also in their sort of energetic gender. This inspiration is a feminine thing. It is illogical. It is unimaginably magical. Planning is the opposite. Hello. Do you hit your chin? You hit your chin? Okay. Can I give you a kiss? Let me give you a hug. You need a break? Okay. Take a pause and then have fun. Okay. Inspiration is feminine. Planning is the opposite. It is logical. It is linear. It is masculine. It is, when am I going to do this? How will I show up for this dream? And when I say masculine, I mean in its essence, the masculine energy provides and protects feminine inspiration. That's it. And so if you're struggling with recognizing that you have this inspiration, or you're struggling with putting it into practice, I want you to look at this planning, masculine, providing and protecting your dreams, your own dreams. Acknowledge that you have a dream, recognize that it's valid and it's credible, and then let that fierce warrior part of yourself say, great, we're going to clear time for this. Okay. I'm going to give you an example. Jen, can you hold up my typo book? At the beginning of this year, I said, I'm going to finally follow through with writing this book that's been in me for a long time. This book. Okay. In January, it was an idea. And I knew I'm a single parent. I run a company. I got a few things on. I don't just have like extra time lying around. I have yet to meet a woman who's like, I'm going to write a book because I'm bored. She does not exist. We write a book and we commit to writing a book despite all that we have going on. I'm just going to talk to you very quickly how I carved out time between January and May to write and publish the book that came out, I think, the last day in May. I looked at my life. I said, how can I do this? It's not every day. I'm not going to be able to write every day. That's not realistic. I'm not going to write every week. That's not realistic. How do I work best right now in this phase of my life? Well, I need a couple of days separated from everything. I need to be in a different space. And so I said, great, once a month, I'm going to go away for 2 days. So that's the decision. I need to find people to keep my human alive. I need to schedule that. I need to find out where I'm going to go. I checked out a couple of hotels within like 45 minutes from my house and scheduled once a month writers' retreats to draft the book, to edit the book, and put it out in the world. That was my planning. And it's essential. You can't go from inspiration to sitting down and writing. A lot of people try, and a lot of people then have struggles. It's not working. I can't squeeze it in. I'm not showing up for the commitment I made for myself. And then we beat ourselves up about that. Instead of, oh, I jumped over this critical time, location, schedule part of the planning. The other part of planning is, what am I going to write? Who am I writing for? What is my core message? What journey does my reader need to be taken on? This is the planning of the book, the outlining of the book. This is fundamental. The first time I sat down to write a book, I did none of this. I had the inspiration and I was like, great, I just need discipline. Boom, let's force myself into this discipline container, which is what most writing advice says. Just sit down and write every day and you will have a book. And so I did. I was in my 20s. I was gracefully unemployed. And I said, I'm going to write my book now. And every morning, 7 to 12, I sat at my computer and I wrote. And I wrote and I wrote and I wrote. Do you know what happened to that story? It is still a document, not even on a computer because I don't own that crazy old desktop anymore. On a hard drive somewhere in a closet somewhere. That is a dead story. It's like a baby that was never born because I didn't have the container to tell the story. And it wasn't that I just needed more discipline. That is not why it didn't happen. I hadn't outlined it. I wasn't sure who needed the story. I didn't have some of the support internally, mentally, or even externally to figure out why it was an important story to bring to fruition. And when you're planning, you know who needs your story. Because this is some superpower shield stuff against all the things that get in the way, the doubt, the who am I to write this story? Why am I even wasting my time on this? When you know who needs what you've got to share and you're connected with them, you're going to show up for them through hell or high water because they need your story. And this is not about you. This is about them. So taking the time to create the space for yourself, create the opportunity for yourself, and then be really, really clear with what you're writing, who you're writing for, and how you're going to get them from point A to point B. Meaning, what are they struggling with? How are they going to be helped at the end of your story? This is outlining. This is planning. If you've taken the time to outline a book, writing it becomes really easy. Both logistically and even emotionally, it's still, okay, caveat, it's still a shit show and it's still hard. But it's easy in that it's easeful and it is accomplishable. Okay. I like to bring a little bit of that honesty where it's like, yes, it's easy, but it's not the easy you think like ordering a pizza and having it delivered easy. It's still, you've got to work your butt off, but you can totally do this. So we've moved from the new moon, which is the inspiration, to the sort of quarter waxing moon, where you plan, where you show up, where you chart the path that you're going to walk. You know when you're going to write, you know what you're going to write, you know who you're writing for. Then it's the full moon. And I use the moon as an example. That does not mean that you need, 2 weeks from today that you need to be doing your writing. It means I want you to be checking in with your own energetic cycles. When do you feel like $1,000,000? There are days in the month where you're like, I got it. I can do anything. This is when we sign up for more than we can handle. This is when we overcommit. This is when we're like, yeah, I think I should start another business or have another kid, or like, let's do that. That sounds like a good idea. I'm sure that's going to be easy. Those are the days that you should be writing. Okay. Not the days when you feel like the world is coming to an end and it's never going to change and it's all your fault and you have to solve the world's problems on your own. That's your new moon day where you should just like take a nap and eat a brownie and wait for inspiration to tap you. Okay. We're now that full moon energy of like anything's possible. I can do anything. Those are the days to be writing. these cycles do map and track. If you are still menstruating, these map with your hormonal shifts. If you're not still menstruating, you still have these cycles, and you can find when these days come to you and when they don't. And so I actually looked at both the moon cycle and my menstrual cycle when I planned my writing retreats. I definitely did not plan them on the end of the world days. Okay. When I suck and everything's impossible and it's never going to be better. Like, that's 9 days before my period. That's not when I'm going to go on my writer's retreat. Okay. That's when I'm going to crawl into a ball and stay that way for the 24 hours that is forever. So knowing when these energetic cycles play out for you also can help your planning process. Now we are at the writing part of writing. You have an actual outline. You know every step of the journey you want to take your reader on. You know who you are addressing. You know the main point you want to make in every chapter and the subpoints you want to make in every chapter after that. And then you've got the map and you're just like, oh, let's go on this journey. That sounds fun. The one lesson when it comes to this writing, and Jen, I am going to tap you to talk about this in a second, is giving yourself permission. And this is why I wrote this entire book, Typo, The Art of Imperfect Creation, because it's not an easy thing to give yourself, but the permission to do it badly. Because in this phase, the goal is to write your worst draft. Okay. The first draft of your book, by definition, must be the worst draft possible. And I think we all get hung up because the vision we have in our head doesn't match the words, our assessment of the words that are coming out of our mouths, our pens, our keyboard. And we're like, this sucks. Good. The first draft has to suck. It has to be the worst draft. You don't want the third draft to be the worst draft. That's not the direction we're going. So the first draft must be the worst draft. Write that down. I think those words rhyme, at least they do when I say them out loud. First and worst rhyme on purpose. First must be the worst. And so your goal is to write the worst draft of this book. Can you say that out loud? My goal is to write the worst draft of this book.
My goal is to write the worst draft of this book.
Doesn't that feel really weird? But if you do that, then you have a shitty first draft, which is an amazing thing to have. A lot of people get stuck. They're editing or they're rewriting or they're analyzing and they're like, who am I to write this? Maybe I should wait. Maybe I should go get a PhD first and then I'll come back to this, right? Let me spend 6 years and $150,000 and then I'll be ready. Bullshit. Go write it badly. Go do it badly. And so this whole book that I wrote, partially because I needed permission also, was permission to do it badly. That's what the subtitle is. Give yourself permission to do this badly. Because that's when you're learning, that's when you're growing, and that's where you can grow from. You can improve a shitty draft. You cannot improve an imaginary draft. So Jen's been through this with me, and she has now guided 11 other women through this process. Anything that you want to share about learning in this phase, this permission to do it badly so that it can become better after that? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, the shitty first draft is something you learn. I learned that in journalism school a long time ago. And it was still always shocking. You know, you'd submit something and then you get these red lines all over the place from your editor or your professor. And it's like, oh my God, I'm just terrible. I can't even write a sentence. Look, everything is redlined. And it took me a long time to be like, no, revision is writing. And it's okay. Like, it's not, it is the shitty first draft. And maybe it's shitty and maybe it's not. But you almost never have the perfect draft right from go. And leading the group through this, it was really interesting because a few people were really close in the first draft. Like they really had spent time in the planning and the inspiration stage, and then something just came through and it needed some tweaking.
Did they know they were close, or were they still not sure?
They
saw their own close draft as a shitty, like unbearably bad draft.
There were a few that came well, and maybe Shauna will mention this in thing, but she started to write something and she's like, this is not at all what I want to write. And she basically threw it all away and started over. And once she had decided that, then the story became clearer for her. And that's happened to me a ton of times too, right? You think you're going in one direction and then you don't, and it doesn't even feel good. And you're like, okay, there's a difference between the shitty first draft and this is just, this is like morning pages,
Well,
Julia
and
Cameron's morning pages.
right? But another thing that happens, and this is my fatal flaw, and I know that I'm going in the wrong direction when I'm trying, right? Trying, like working really hard, and it's not flowing, and I sound like a pedantic ass. That's not me. That's not the voice that I want. That's not me really relaxing into the process. That's me forcing myself to be a version of the smart leader, writer, person that I think that I'm supposed to be, right? And so that's when you should stop and shake it out, go for a walk and do something else. And I want to be respectful of the time that we have. So I want to give a couple of other 21st century writing tips. I always learn the word sit down and write. Okay. And I think that I need to sit down in front of a computer and write. But when I sit still, my ideas do not flow very well. And when I'm alone in a room, my ideas do not flow very well. 21st century tip, Otter is a voice to text transcription app that you can have on your phone. And if you like to talk rather than type, it gets you out of your head in a different way, and it gets a draft flowing. So my technique, I outline my book on Post-its. I got the whole journey. Every chapter gets a Post-it, which means I keep it really simple. And then I take a walk with a Post-it and I talk my Post-it out, because here's the main point I want to make. Here's the other stories I want to share, or the lessons that I want to make sure get in there. And then they come out, and these are like the easiest babies to have. They just fall right out. Okay. Because I am walking, and I don't care if it's a shitty first draft, because when I'm talking, I am not self-editing. I don't have that like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Like, let me remove blah, 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 blah. Again, my love. Oh my gosh. Be gentle with yourself, okay? Okay. I'm going to wrap up in a little bit, and then I'm going to join you in the pool. Okay. Thank you. So you do not have to sit down to write. Look up the Otter link. It's fabulous. If you want it, I will send it directly to you. It is amazing. It punctuates things for you. It captures the audio. It is great. Okay. So super highly recommend exploring that if the sit down and write doesn't work for you. And Jen referenced, when she was talking about the shitty first draft, the final stage. Once we've gone from full moon, we're getting ready actually to go back to the new moon. So what is the thing? What do we do with a shitty first draft? Which the writing, again, is the feminine. Okay. It is inspiration. It is flawful. It's flawsome. Go for it. Go make a mess. Let the story come out, because, and remember, this last phase of the process, it doesn't have to be right the first time, because the last part of the process is the editing. It is the revision. This is where you can go through with your fine-tooth comb. This is where you can go through with your analytical brain and say, does this make sense? Does my reader need this? Did I just need to write that to figure it out for myself? We always say at Red Thread that the first draft is for you. This is where you discover your voice. You discover what it is that you needed to say. But the final draft is for your reader. And so in this revision phase, we go back and we pull out words. What's the best word for this? I wrote thing. That's not what I mean. I mean, iteration. Great. That's a better word. Let me change the word. Anita, try not to splash, okay? Thanks. And we polish, okay? Again, remembering that the phases of the moon are a circle. It is not a line. You do not inspire once, plan once, write once, and revise once, and you have a done book. This is the story we have. We have a linear society. We have a linear patriarchy that tells you it should be done in a straight line, preferably at a 45-degree angle, so that you are better off than you were 30 days ago. But what if it's a circle? And not only is this process feminine in its journey, then you revise and then you go back to inspiration. And then you rest. You take a nap, you take a walk, you sit by the pool, you laugh with your friends. And then you say, great, how can I plan out this next cycle of my journey, this next cycle of my business, this next cycle of my book? Because this process works with everything. How can I show up? What worked last time? What didn't work last time? Great. Integrate that into your plan. Where are you in the project? Well, I have a shitty first draft and I revised it once, but I recognize that I needed to make some changes. Cool. You revise the plan. When you're ready, you show up for the writing again, and then you revise that. The second book I ever published is called Date Yourself, and I edited that book. Are you ready? Drum roll, heartbreaking number, 27 times. Thank you, Heather. 27 times. Okay, I printed it. I looked at it and I'm like, yep, there's some errors in it. Imperfect creation. I could have kept it to myself until it was perfect. Do you know how many people will ever read a book that's perfect? None, because it'll never be perfect. None. Zero. None. Okay. And so we need this imperfect creation at the beginning of the process, and we also need imperfect creation near the end. There's going to be a point, and most of the authors that work with us hate me for it because I'm like, yeah, you're cut off now. This is fine. They're like, yeah, but it's not good enough. But yeah, but it's fine. And it's not about you. It's about the people who need it. Are you going to make them wait another decade because it's not ready yet? Right, Joanna? Joanna, like, no, don't make them wait another decade. They're not going to care that there's a typo in it. They're not going to care that there's a better word in the 9th sentence of the 37th page. They won't notice. They don't care. Okay. This is about you showing up for other people. And it takes a lot to give ourselves permission to do it badly, especially at that finish line. I have somebody who's publishing on Tuesday, and right on schedule was her freak out yesterday. It's not ready. I don't like it. I don't think we should, can't, don't, won't, bleh, bleh, freak out. Okay, this is the birthing process. If you've ever given birth to a creature, in the midst of labor, every woman is like, yeah, no, you know what? I actually don't think I want to have this kid. I don't really want to be a parent. Can we do something else now? That's like 10 minutes before the baby's actually born. And that's what happens in the writing process and the publishing process. And we're like, yeah, no, I never really wanted to write a book after all. Let's just pull the plug. And so I'm the one that's like, just push one more time and then you're done. Okay. So this is a methodology that we teach. The next book I'm writing, in fact, is all about this. I'm going to do what I've just done for you in 35 minutes in probably 150 pages. And then there's going to be a workbook to follow along. That's my next baby. And if you say something at these summits, then they become true. Because like Jen said at the beginning, 2-3 years ago, I was like, maybe I should start a publishing company. And now I've published 43 books and helped 178 women become published authors. So watch out what you commit to in this magic space. So I'm happy to take any questions if the format allows for that. Any feedback, what did you laugh about? What almost made you pee yourself? What did you write down? What are you going to try and integrate next time you have a writing process or any sort of project endeavor? Anything that anybody wants to share, or even Jen, anything that you want to add, you're welcome to now.
Yeah, and I have always loved the cyclical nature of things, and I did not learn that in my 20s and 30s and 40s. And it's only now at 51 that I can say, like, but I see it in this conference even, right? Like I am in a full moon moment of this conference. And there's the planning
you are full
cycle
on
is
shining.
long,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yep.
it's not 14 days, it's 2
Yeah.
or 3 months. And now I'm in this full moon.
And
for
you've been
5
pregnant.
days.
You've been pregnant with this for a year. This is like
That's
a
right.
book. This is like an actual human baby. The gestation period is long.
And that's
And
it. You know, the
yeah.
gestation period sometimes for these things, it's not what we're taught, like immediate satisfaction, gratification
No.
right now. Sometimes you need 3 months for the planning process, 6 weeks for the inspiration process, right? It's just
And this is
understanding
your
it.
third conference, right? Your first conference. And then what did I like about that? Great. I'm going to do it again, but I'm going to do it differently. And then we learn through iteration. But if you had waited until everything was perfect, how many conferences would you have held?
0.
Yeah, of course. None. I love it. Yeah. And this is the thing. So I am going to sort of give you this last little teaser bit because I've helped women do this a lot. I have published, let me see if I get this right number. I think I've written 3 solo books, 14 collaborative books. I do this process, and I don't recommend that you start it this way, but I can do this process now. I can write a book in 3 or 4 days. The writing part of the book, okay? Because I've practiced the inspiration. I know how to plan a book. Let me just tell you about Typo. I told you I started it in January. Fantastic. I wrote it, I drafted it, I got my developmental edit back. It was April, January, February, March, April, 4 months drafting a book. I was working on my developmental edit. It was something like 42,000 words. And I got to a point where I was like, no, this is dead. This does not have the spark of life in it. And in April, I threw out the entire manuscript. I still published at the end of May because I knew what I wanted to write. And so I sat down, I outlined the crap out of this book in a weekend on little Post-its. And I sat on my balcony with Otter and I talked the entire book out. So Saturday I outlined on Post-its. Sunday I talked the entire book out into Otter, and that was my shitty first draft. And I revised it over a month and I let it out into the world. It was a hard thing because I know it's not perfect. But I was like, this book, Typo, The Art of Imperfect Creation, could not be released into the world as a perfect thing. I was like, I can't be that hypocrite right now. I can't wait another month and I can't get it to the next level of good because then I'm telling people to go make a mess and I'm not willing to model how to be a mess. And so it was this really powerful exercise. But because I have done this myself 3 or 4 times and with 73 other people, I can compress this. It can take as long as you want, and that it does not mean you have to commit and say, oh, it's going to take me 9 months to write my book. It could, but the next time you do it, it doesn't have to take, it's not written in stone once it's written. And you find your energy and you can find your flow. And so, again, Jen, you just mentioned like 14-day cycles. Fine. That's how the moon works. It doesn't have to be how you work. This is not a prescribed, you must do these stages in the phases of the moon or with your menstrual cycle. It could be the seasons of the year. These energies match all the things. It could be the hours in a day. These phases can happen in 24 hours. They can happen in 365 days. They can happen in 792 days. I don't care. And I don't want you to prescribe limits to it because this is what we're taught to do. There's a path, there's a way. Sierra told me to do it this way, and I'm going to force myself to do it this way. I want you to find your own permission and your own rhythm, but play in each of these phases. You could do, and we have the conference for the next couple of days, but the next day that you don't have anything going on, you can tap into all 4 of these energies in a particular day, right? You can dream your day. What do I want today? Plan your day. How am I going to have that today? Go fulfill it. I'm going to jump in what do I want today? I want to be in the pool with my daughter. Cool. When am I going to do that? I'm going to do that after this conference. Great. Then I'm going to go do it. And then I say, good. How did that work? Should I do it again tomorrow? That's the revision. You can do this in anything. All right. Any final questions before we sign off? If not, please reach out to me. Please become a part of the community. If you have a dream to write, recognize that you're already 25% done with the project. Okay. You have the fundamental prerequisites because anybody can write a book. Anybody. It is a
Yeah, that
terrifying
is
prospect,
so,
but it's true.
it's true though. It is true. I mean, look at all the books you've published this year and all the women who didn't think they were going to publish at all, ever,
Including me.
including,
I
yeah.
have all the reasons I would never publish, all the reasons I'm not a writer. I'm dyslexic. It's not my thing. I'm not an old pedantic ass with a corduroy jacket with leather elbow patches. That's what a writer is. No, this is what a writer is. I am like everyone. I had all the beliefs that I couldn't. I still have all those beliefs. I have to look at the lists of the things that I've done. I have to look at the books on the shelf and be like, did I really do that? That doubt sort of doesn't go away. I just don't give it as much credibility as it used to have. Okay. I don't want you to think that like, oh, Sierra did it and she's different than me. That's easy thinking to fall into. It took me, I do think of myself as an author, but it took me 2.5 years after my first book came out to be like, I am an author. Whoa. And it came to me as a surprise. Okay. Last month, I was like self-doubt central. Okay. It doesn't go away. I just don't abide by it anymore.
I think that's the takeaway is, in this, in this particular moment in the creativity jam, it's about the stories on the spiral path. And we were doing some exercise of what story are you telling yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And this is exactly one of the ones that you can rewrite, quite
Right.
literally.
Right. You can
Quite
invest in
literally.
it. You can absolutely invest in this BS story. Or I hear the voice. I'm like, yeah, I hear you. I know you're trying to keep me safe from embarrassment and from struggle. Thank you. Pass. I want embarrassment and I want struggle because I want the other stuff that comes along with it. The voice doesn't go away. Don't try to make it go away. That's a waste of effort. Acknowledge it as just a voice that's really on your team. It is trying to keep you safe. I love you. Thank you so much. Fear and doubt. I'm going to take a hard pass though. I'm going to go do this impossible thing anyway. Maybe we can leave it there.
I think that's it. I'm gonna go do this hard thing anyway. And you, like Joanna just said, like you learn how to manage it and you say, okay, I'm still gonna do it. So embarrassment and fear, you just kind of hang out over here in the backseat of the convertible for a little while. And
Exactly.
enthusiasm and joy. Why don't you hop into the front seat?
Yeah. Who's driving?
Yeah,
Who's driving? Everybody's on the ride. We're all along for the ride. Just who do you let drive?
And on that, you do have a worksheet about this that's available on your speaker
Absolutely.
page and downloadable. So if you
I have a whole
have a whole book on it.
I do have a book on it, but there's also on our website, www.redthreadbooks.com, there's a free resources section, and I think there's 37 writing, publishing, and book marketing thought leadership resources that we just share. So as Jen said in my bio, we are on a mission to support 10,000 women to become successful published authorpreneurs and thought leaders. It is not my intention to publish 10,000 books. If I can share one thing that supports you to step forward towards this dream and goal, this is what I want for you. So I'm showing up to help make that possible. Okay. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
And thank you. And you are a direct result of this as well. Our newest book, but our collaborative book. But, and I couldn't have done it without you, really.
It's my pleasure and my honor.
Thanks.
And none of us could have done it without you. So this is why we work together. This is
That's
it.
right. Yeah, that's right.
If I can say one last thing is
Please.
another story that I have about writers or being a writer contains this very like solo pioneer, do it alone, tough it up story. And there is a part of writing that you is uniquely yours, but do not isolate yourself because you believe that you need to sort of struggle on your own. None of us needs to do this alone. Look at all of your favorite books, go to read the acknowledgements page, There's 30 to 60 people listed in the back of every book. Every book is a whole village working to support. We don't put all those names on the cover, but all of those people helped make that book real. Okay. Don't think you have to do this alone.
And that's where we're gonna leave it. So thank you, Sierra, for coming back to the Fierce Awakened Woman Creativity Jam, for being the light that you are in my life and for many of us in the room right now as we're getting ready to share that. But thank you. Thank you for your wisdom.
It's my honor and pleasure. Thanks for having me.